Recognize that your mental health is so important. If you don't, then I promise you'll be so distorted. Stiffened by your thoughts, that's a mental rigor mortis. I'm on a hard mission and it won't be aborted. Assorted memories will seem to be your remedy, but in your darkest hour, form into your enemies. Trust your gut, judge people off their energy. Cut them off quick and fast, they are limiting your room to grow.
What's up, everyone? You're listening to the Expect Effect podcast, and I'm your host. It's just Nakia. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, for listening, for continually applying to be the best version of yourself, for pushing forward even when you don't know what that looks like. And if you're having a tough time getting off the couch, if you are in a rough spot right now, that's perfectly fine. There are moments and periods in which your body needs more than simply a few days of rest. There are days you're going to be sad and you don't know why. There are days you're going to be facing extreme and intense opposition, but I encourage you and I implore you to continually put your best foot forward, however that is. So if that's not the day that you go out and take a walk, if it is the day that you just stay home on the couch all day, if it is the day you don't take any calls, if it is the day you're not immediately available for everyone around you, that's okay too. Listen, we know that life is hard, but here at the Expect Effect, at least for the time that you're with me, we believe that self-care and the processes to becoming the best version of yourself, well, these things don't have to be. So sit back, relax, and unwind as we together uncover ways to truly expect better, do better, and believe better. So a couple of things. I'm pretty sure in the last episode I said this would be the last episode. However, we're back because the rollout last week did not go as anticipated. Everything that could have went wrong did go wrong, and it inspired me even more to take a break, release the show in a seasonal format, as we prepare to go into the upcoming season for season 4, a seasonal format that does not include weekly releases per se. Everything I was doing again was done in real time, but you already know all of that. So long story short, we had a few rollout issues last week, and unfortunately, the interview that we recorded with DeMarcus Taylor was unsalvageable. There was an error with the audio upload and processing, and I could unfortunately not retrieve that or edit it in a way that would allow for it to be able to be published or produced. It wasn't even a matter of making cuts. It was truly unsalvageable. So we lost that interview. So I'm going to leave you on a note where we do have 2 remarkable interviews, one in which we're going to talk about the effects and dealing with imposter syndrome and what that really means for all of us and how the fight is truly ongoing. And then I've got Stee's Genius here with me. As you may know her from a previous episode, Like a Boy, we're going to be talking about their upcoming project. I don't know why this is going to sound a little redundant. So we're going to say their upcoming book titled Project Kid. So I'm really excited for that conversation, for you guys to hear that conversation and to really dive deep into the mind of the author. I think you're going to find this book to be very inspirational and relatable depending on where you are in life. And if nothing else, you'll consider it to be an inspiring tale of somebody who's overcoming the odds and really pushing forward and telling their truth. So I'm excited to present these conversations to you. Again, I don't have much to say here today. I really just want to get the episodes out. I'm excited. I have so many wonderful things coming. You're going to see plenty of me, just not behind this mic for a while, but I'm getting so many things together, so many wonderful things that I'm going to announce in due time. Just keep a lookout, stay locked in. It's just Nakia on Instagram and Facebook, at the Expect Effect Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, theexpecteffectpod.com. We'll be back next week. We're going live on May 14th, I want to say. I've thrown out the date of May 10th, but I really do want to do a small launch and a build up to that. So May 14th, expect that the expecteffectpod.com is going to be back up, and we're really going to be rolling out some just fantastic shit. Like, I'm really, really excited for the direction that my career is going, for the direction that this show is going, and for all of the things I have in the works. I'm really trying to get back to reconnected to the meaning of the show and make sure that everything we put out is as best as it can be. If I don't feel that it's of its highest highest quality, then I have to pull the plug and reassess. I have to readjust. We have to restructure and rebuild where applicable and make sure that this is, again, just top tier production, and top tier content, top tier engagement, everything. We're expecting better, doing better, and believing better in every facet. So I'm going to take some time to really get that done. Thank you so much for tuning in. The last 3 seasons have been breathtaking. If it had not been for the listeners, if it had not been for the support, if it had not been for those who tuned in and saw something in me, that there were moments I couldn't even see in myself, we simply wouldn't have made it this far. And we're going to go even further the more opportunities I find myself walking into. Big shout out to Laura Miller. And it's me shouting out Laura every week. So Laura is sensational. She's really stepped up as a publicist, as a friend, just an amazing human being and individual. The connections that she supplied me with, the rooms that she spoke in my name in. Thank you to LeJune King. The photos are sensational. We're going to use my personal branding kit is beyond just, I mean, damn, there are no words for it. What LeJune does behind the camera, it's necessary. It's beautiful. It's art, and it's of high capacity. So if you're in the Frisco area, Dallas-Fort Worth area, get in touch with LeJune King of Black Story Studios. That's BLK Story Studios with LeJune King. You are not going to regret that photography session, not in the slightest. It's going to be well worth your money and then some. And again, she does personal branding sessions. So she did mine, and it was a really, really sensational experience. So get locked in with her. I want to give a shout out to Alicia Haskett, just for being just a bomb individual of experience, and boudoir photography. So be sure you get locked in with her. You guys, thank you again for all of the support. I'm bringing you the best season we've ever done with the greatest content we've ever released. It's coming up. Just be patient. Thank you for rocking with me, and thank you for giving me room to breathe a little bit, to restructure, and to chase the bag. I'm getting after some things. I promise y'all. You're going to be seeing me everywhere, and then you're going to be seeing me back here for season 4. So thanks again. We're stepping into full effect on a conversation about imposter syndrome, and then be sure you lock into that bonus episode we've got discussing Project Kid with none other than Steez.
Hi there, my name is Habiba Zaman. I am the owner of North Star of Georgia Counseling. I'm a professional counselor, an author, a business owner, and a mommy of 2 little humans.
Man, what an exciting lineup. I'm really, really thrilled to have you here with me. And knowing that you have so much going on, I cannot say how much I appreciate you taking time out here to speak with me today. Getting right into it, you mentioned that you're an author, you're a certified counselor. Tell me how these career paths evolved for you, how you got started, and what your life has looked like up until this point.
Oh, goodness. As far as being a therapist, I knew since 8th grade that this is what I wanted to do. I had a wonderful school counselor, and she was so profound, and she was able to see through me in a way that I didn't think anybody else could. And I wanted her superpower, to be completely honest. So I knew the trajectory of the kind of profession I wanted to follow. It was my passion from a very, very young age. Since then, I studied in Georgia, at Georgia State. I did my undergrad and my graduate degrees there. Got married, had a bunch of babies, and I worked in a lot of different fields within the mental health realm. And I picked up little pieces here and there of what I wanted it to look like and what I wanted it to be and what would be the absolute best way I could provide the service that I believed everyone deserved. So I opened up North Star about 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years very soon.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, it surprises me every time I think of the number. I'm like, wait, how long has it been? So, it started that way. It was just me for a minute, and then I had an intern, and then I had another intern, and then they joined the practice. And now if you look at my website, I have 6 other therapists that work there. So we have this huge family of multicultural therapists that do their absolute best to provide the best care we could possibly do.
That is amazing. Talk to me a little bit about when you're first coming up in the ranks and you're saying, okay, I'm super confident, being a therapist is definitely what I want to do. I know one thing that grabs a lot of us by the neck is imposter syndrome, otherwise known as imposter phenomenon. Tell me what your experiences have been with that. And it's totally okay if this is something you didn't struggle with. But I mean, definitely, what have your experiences been with that? And what have you heard in terms of, as far as what you could express from, clients or people who have talked to you and said, look, I don't even know how I fit into this space, because it definitely happens.
Absolutely. I don't know anyone truly that hasn't battled with imposter syndrome. I've written about it a couple of times. I've worked with it many, many times with the professionals that I work with at my office. It's there. It's always there.
Oh man, I love that you said that. I know there are going to be listeners who really needed that acknowledgement that it is always there. And I think sometimes you have this idea that you'll inevitably come up with this magic trick to conquer it permanently. And I'm just finding that is not the case.
That is definitely not the case. I mean, I've experienced it in every area of my life, as a mom, as a therapist, as a business owner, an author. I mean, truly, it's been in every transformation through the stages of my life. Always.
Wow. That's that. Oh man. I just really love that you put it that way. How would you define it for some who say, okay, I don't necessarily understand the definition. I know I don't feel like I belong in this space, but maybe they don't fully grasp imposter syndrome.
Sure. The way I define it, I mean, there's a couple of different definitions out there, clinical definitions, but the way that I've been able to explain it and the way I experience it is that it stems from fear of not being worthy of having what's right there in front of me, and feeling that it's a privilege that needs to be earned and proved regularly. Does that make sense?
It definitely. And I think that last part, that it's something that needs to be earned and proved regularly. It's truly not something that we believe we're capable of. We don't believe we're good enough. And we ask ourselves questions like, why am I here? Because it never really feels like we belong.
Right.
In what ways?
Present.
At all. And what do you think really contributes to that more than anything? Or what do you think some of the most common factors are? This incessant gnawing, a feeling like a fraud. For me, it came from growing up in an environment where achievement was the primary source of acknowledgement of worth. So, it began to rewire my brain to believe that that's the only time I'm worthy. And then it becomes tangled in my sense of self. Does that make sense? And my self-esteem and things like that. I may present as being very, put together and, I'm successful or this or that, and I've accomplished so much, but because it's so tied into my worth in achieving things, it feels like I need to get the next thing or the next thing or the next thing before I'm able to get there. But that next day doesn't actually come. Yes. And for me personally, I find a lot of the battles came from feeling like, much like you, I needed to be doing something of that they would consider of value, right? So whomever I was with at the time, and I did bounce between family members, it was, whatever was pleasing to them at the moment seemed to be the only acceptable way for me. And that definitely led into tendencies and behaviors I didn't care for in adulthood, and some I'm still actively correcting. What are some ways that you would recommend combating experiences of imposter syndrome? I know professionally, a lot of people may say personally, they are who they are, but professionally, it freaks them out to think that they have that status or that title. I know that every day I go to work, but there's still a part of me that very much feels like a child in need of direction. Like I still don't belong in this space. So what are some tips you would give as far as just combating general imposter?
Well, for me, I think the main thing, the very beginning of it, is acknowledging that it's there, because you keep running from this ugly green monster, right? And it keeps shouting these judgment at you for not being good enough. And then that monster becomes the driving force to excel and succeed, right? You try to run away from it, so you try to prove it wrong. And it's with the hope that eventually we can shut it up with enough evidence. I've done this, 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 and this, and this. So see, please stop. I'm good enough.
That's a perfect visual, because I really feel like that's what it is. And it almost feels like you're going in circles Because
Yes.
you think there's going to be this finish line, or like you're running around a
Yes.
track and it's never going to stop.
Right. It's that fear that becomes the habitual motivation behind those behaviors, right? And then the accolades for these achievements reinforce that behavior, and then the cycle continues. Like you said, you just go around in circles. And so I think it's important to just stop and look at the monster and say, yeah, I see you. Hey, yes, okay, I see you.
Acknowledgement. Yes.
And that's the hardest part, I believe, is to stop and turn around and look it in the face and like, okay, I see why you're here and I see where you came from without any judgment.
Without any judgment. What do you think that, or what does that really look like? Or how do you feel like we're able to really embrace more of that? Because I think many would say we're our own worst critic. And I'm sure this is a question you get quite often, but how do I look at myself and show love in the midst of all of this? You could say negative thinking, definitely negative self-talk, and all of these things that come with imposter.
Right. One of the first things that I tell my clients, one of the first things I had to embrace, right, is that I want them to be able to show me all of their crazy and to be not fearful of any consequence, that there's going to be no consequence whatsoever. And the reason I say that is because the fear of consequence is what keeps up these masks that we hold as a defense mechanism. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. We have all of these different masks that we show to the world and to society. And we do that to combat that fear of consequence, that whatever the consequence is going to be, whether it's rejection, whether it's judgment, any of those things. And it keeps you protected who you think is really there, and you don't want people to see through that mask. And so what I do is the first thing I ask for, and the first thing I had to ask for myself, is to put away these masks so that we can present ourselves as we are. And then realize that all of these consequences that we're so fearful of doesn't really exist.
It doesn't really exist. The fact that it's essentially all made up, that's the wild thing. And to your point, we definitely fear the consequence. I think we fear judgment. Kind of, I guess, in the same realm, I feel like some of imposter syndrome, and I think this particular issue goes in hand with a lot of problems we face. I think it's definitely maybe the growing point, if you will, comparison, especially in an age in which social media is very active, we're very driven, we're very open. I think it becomes even easier to feel like we don't fit. And I know for me specifically, I ended up in a situation where on the one hand, I was encountering imposter syndrome for what was going on in a professional setting, and I didn't feel like I belonged in that space, but also I was doing a lot to make it seem like I belonged in that space. Mm-hmm. So then it came about financial ruin, right? Because I wanted to be what I felt like everybody else was and what the other people were doing, but also like what I should have been capable of doing in my position. And how do you think we really tackle comparison as it would relate to overcoming imposter syndrome?
So I think you're absolutely right. Most of our ailments stem from that inability or refusal to accept ourselves for who we are currently as a result of where we've been. We don't like where we are. We don't like sitting with what we have. We want to be someone else. We want to be somewhere else. And it's that refusal to accept where we are right now because we're wanting something more, because then if you have more, then you'll have more acceptance, then you'll fit in, then we'll fill that gaping hole within us, right?
It definitely seems that way. I mean, it really does. And I can say for a moment, there's this rush, and then you also realize the damage you're causing subsequently on the back end.
Right. Because we don't live up to it, right? There's that rush in the moment, and you're like, yes. And then what? And then you come back down to earth and you're still you, right? And in order to be able to combat all of these things, we really have to give ourselves the grace to accept who we are right now. Everything in every self-help or psychology or any of these realms of empowerment, we always say, you need to love yourself for who you are, right? and be confident and own it and this and that. But a lot of people don't know what that means.
Yeah, I could definitely say that and I feel like there are definitely moments it's hard to consider the context
Yes.
and really then grasp what's happening. So imposter syndrome sets in even.
Mm-hmm. And for that, I think it's important to embrace what the point of it is, which every time I say this to someone, they look at me like I've just grown, horns on my head or something. Like, what do you mean purpose? It doesn't serve any purpose. It's destructive. And what I mean by that is everything we do serves a purpose, even if it is dysfunctional, right? Wearing a mask in society, having imposter syndrome, all of these things, it's a defense mechanism, right? It's there for a reason. It's
okay.
there to protect you. Does that make sense?
That's definitely a way to consider it, especially when outlining that imposter syndrome, of course, stems in a lot of ways from fear, right? So we're scared and we don't want to face the consequences. And then to put it in the light of this is a defense mechanism, I then think makes it easier for me to say, like, okay, I can give myself a little room to view this differently, and I can give myself some love and encouragement and some room to handle.
Right. It would be the same kind of compassion you would give to a friend or a mentee or another person going through something similar. Recognizing, I've been there and I know why you're doing it. We don't afford or affront that to ourselves, right? Because we're our worst critics.
110%. And what do you think it looks like in that process to really rewrite those mental programs that are in place? Especially, I think for me, it's like one thing I've done is step back off of social media so frequently. I've learned to use it more as an entertainment factor, but much like, Netflix or Hulu or video games, like too much of a good thing can eventually become a bad thing.
Yes. Combating it, I think the more you accept why you're there, the more you can slowly start to rewrite them. Until you see what's there and why it's there, you're not able to make a change because it won't be lasting. And it's just the same thing as running, right? If you're running from that monster because you're afraid of the judgment, right, and you're afraid of falling behind, or you're feeling, fearful of failure altogether, if you don't stop to ask, okay, why am I so afraid of failing? What's so wrong with failing? What's the worst that's going to possibly happen right now? I can do all kinds of things, but they're just going to be Band-Aids.
Oh, wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that visual.
Well, I'm a big believer of affirmations. That's something that, just like we talk to ourselves in a very negative light sometimes, the more we repeat them, the more mental passages that we create, the stronger they become. It's the same thing with positive affirmations, right? The more you say them, the more you believe them, the more they'll be there and it'll be stronger. I agree. At the same time, that is a coping mechanism that's a Band-Aid. Because it'll still live simultaneously next to the negative ones. And the negative ones will still ring true when they're triggered.
Wow. Drop the mic, because I never even thought about it that way, but that's definitely, and I think that right there kind of deconstructs the conversation just a tad when we're saying things like, this person's overly optimistic, or this person may be overly pessimistic, or even when we talk about, are there any effects to speaking kindly to yourself, to quote unquote manifestation, and then in affirmation, is there any power? And you're saying, yes, absolutely, but also recognizing that the negative things are still there. If we can get past this idea that these things will eventually be written off, then I think, there's definitely a deep level of healing that can begin in that space. Right.
I do, one of the things I tell my clients, and I'm like, yes, I know, coming from a therapist, this sounds horrible. If you want to run, now would be the time. I usually say this on the first session. But, nearly all of my clients come to me wanting to feel confident and happy and secure in their lives, right? Same thing with the imposter syndrome. When they have that, they're like, can we just get rid of it? I want to, present as being happy and confident and secure, because that's what's lacking when you have the imposter syndrome.
Right.
And so far no one has realized that that's not the goal. It is the automatic result of something else. It's just what happens. It's a byproduct. It's the side effect. The end result ends up being somehow that you're less stressed, you're less, insecure, you're less doubtful of your own abilities and where you stand and who you are. That just happens, but that's not what we work towards. That's not the goal. The goal is to understand why you are the way you are in the first place.
To really learn self and develop, presumably, a healthy relationship with self. So at this point, you really know yourself to the degree of your standards. And I think one thing I am learning as I get older is that it is truly okay to embrace the variations of myself that exist today, that may not exist tomorrow, and that these things really are constantly shifting.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're always in a state of becoming. It took me a long time to realize that. For me, everything was, when I do this, then I'll be happy. When I do this, I'll be successful.
And I think you hear that so often. Like, I can't tell you how many times you see it and people are like, just wait until I get this. And even myself, I'm like, if I can just do this thing, it seems like it's suddenly going to really alleviate all of the weight and the pressures that are on my shoulders. Even in some of the delayed processes I've had of putting out the show, it's been because I've constantly reached for the next thing so heavily that I was never resting in the present and never recognizing what I actually needed. But under all of these notions, I'm just chasing this and chasing this and chasing this until I've worn myself out. So yeah, I feel that 110%. How would you advise people slow down when they're caught up in that deeply? Not just to the point of saying, okay, I've got to recognize this. I've got to know what it is, but where can they maybe just start to come to a stopping point so they can assess and begin?
Right. That's definitely something I've always struggled with, that I still find myself struggling with. And the way to pause is to ask yourself, okay, why am I doing this right now? My body's about to give out. I've had a migraine for 3 days.
That's so bad. That was literally me. I was trying to move. I had hiccups during the move. And then also, like, there are very real day-to-day experiences going on. Yes. I've got to go to work. I've got to do all of these things. But I was still attacking myself for where I was falling short. And instead of saying, like, what is my body saying it needs? What is my mind saying it needs? It was really what I assumed I needed to complete or needed to.
Mm-hmm. And usually, okay, this is going to sound convoluted. The fear behind the need is stronger than the ability to cope and rest. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And I think only because I can, and I think it's so fresh for me, just the anxiety and the panic of, like, I was literally trying to relax. And then you're saying, like, no, I cannot be here right now. Right.
And so that's the thing. We can't put that away until we understand what it's trying to do. Whatever that fear is, what is it trying to do? Why is that a motivating factor right now?
I like that. So definitely just assessing, like, why, like, in that moment, what's happening.
Right. If you just pause to be like, all right, I know what I'm doing. Because right? You're anxious, you're tense, you're about to fall on your face and you're still going. I was like that yesterday.
It always feels like almost like a surreal scene. At some point you feel like you're on the outside looking in. Yes. But there's no stopping it.
And then you, like, at least for me, I will say, sometimes I stand there, I'm just like, seriously? You're still going to do this right now? I mean, we're just going to jump right in, right? Because you know this dysfunction right now, don't you? And then I laugh, I'm like, yes, I do. But then it's the choice that's what's important. We're not doing it in reaction. We need to start doing things by choice.
I like that.
Like yesterday, it was my choice to stay up way, way past my bedtime to be able to get the house in order and clean because I needed some semblance of control in the hot mess of a house that I had because we went on spring break with the babies. My sons and we went on spring break and then we came back and my baby sister came to visit from Texas and I haven't seen her in a year and a half. And so I had to go entertain her and take her here and take her there. And then I had the circus with the kids and oh my goodness, like everything is just, and laundry's just never ending. So we had
It really isn't. I really don't think it gets enough credit because it's truly it never stops.
And so I just, everything was such a whirlwind and I really needed to stop, but I knew that the outside could not match the inside. So yes, I'll be struggling and mama's going to need a nap sometime later, like I did today after my sessions were done. I definitely needed a nap before we could do this one properly.
Naps are fantastic.
That was a choice, right?
I love the framework there to say and deconstruct. I'm doing this out of fear, or I'm doing this out of anxiety, versus I'm doing this to create a sense of balance, to become more organized, and to really put a label on that and put some understanding behind the action. I think it's probably, for what I've heard recently, one of the most constructive ways to remain gentle with yourself.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would give the same kind of grace to everyone else. I deserve the same as well.
Man, you have given just exceptionally wonderful insight today. If I could keep you here all evening, I would. But I have to thank you for your transparency, for your ability to teach, for your examples, and for your willingness again to just take a little bit of your time to be here on the show. In closing, I like to ask my guests just 5 random questions. These weren't written down anywhere, anything like that. So we like to call them the rapid 5. And then we'll give you the opportunity just to let people know where they can plug into your work. I want to buy one of your books, if not all of the books. So we're definitely going to get into that. But real quick, the rapid 5, we're just going to shoot off with the first question. You've got 2 boys. Did you ever think you would be a boy mom, and do you enjoy it?
Oh my goodness. That's a really long answer. Did I think I was going to be a boy mom? No, but I'm definitely grateful that they're boys and not girls, because if I'm neurotic now, I can only imagine what I would be with a daughter. And if you could watch the relationship that I have, that we've cultivated together, the 3 of us, it's just incredible. I sit there with my mouth agape half the time with the way we are and how open and real and vulnerable and exposed and funny, and we're just all out there with each other. And I love it. I love it so much. With the
that's
farts
amazing.
And everything else too. That comes. I mean, I don't know how many times I've twisted ankles. I've dislocated ribs from being attacked.
It's a hard life out there for sure.
My oldest is now taller than me by 3 inches, which
that
doesn't say much, but
no, but when it happens,
yes. And it's incredible. It's incredible being a boy mom.
Oh man, that's amazing. Do you have a favorite board game or game that you play with the family?
Yes, we have. Oh, what is this called? I don't know what it's called. I have no idea what it's called. It's not funny, but basically you have these pictures, these random pictures. We have an army edition, we have a pet edition. And you're supposed to come up with a story behind the pictures, and then we vote on the stories.
Oh, okay.
It's like people watching.
No, but safely. Yeah,
Yes.
safely people watching. Pre-pandemic, did you have a favorite pastime, something you like to go out and enjoy doing that you have not been able to do recently?
Oh, dancing. I am desperate to be able to go dancing again.
Oh, wow. Do you have a favorite type of dance? Just general dance? Like what?
I do Latin dancing mostly.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's
Been
fantastic.
my favorite.
I have 2 left feet, but that is fantastic.
Oh.
Okay. 2 more questions we've got, and we're going to wrap here. What was the last song you listened to?
The last song I listened to, I think, was a Spanish song, but I'm not Hispanic and I don't speak Spanish, so I don't know what it was about.
That's okay. I do that myself frequently. I'm like, this sounds so good. And I have no idea what's happening
Santos.
Here. Okay. I'm going to look him up, and I'm sure he's going to have a bop that I'm going to not know what's really happening, but I'm going to enjoy the entire way through. Last question. What is your favorite type of food? My
favorite type of food. It's French food. I love French food. The patisserie, the everything. The bread, the meat.
When I was in high school, there was a French bakery, like not far from the school at all. And it was definitely one of our favorite lunch spots. I'm forever thankful that it was there because it was probably one of the first things to open my palate up to different experiences and being willing to try different things. So that was always a really cool thing to do. Man, I have to thank you again for coming on. Really quick, please let the people know where they can plug in. You mentioned your website, where they can plug into your practice, and also where we can get these books, because I'm definitely going to need all of them.
Oh, thank you. So my website for the practice is northstarofgeorgia.com. My personal website is habibazaman.com, and it has my books, the programs that I've created on there. I do a lot of writing. I do once a month writing, so my blogs are on there. I have a quiz. It's called ID Me. That's been a lot of fun, and it helps you understand, where you fall as far as your identity goes and how much you've learned or how much you need to learn, for that matter. My Instagram handle is at habibti_zaman. I think that's all of them.
Oh man, hey, and if you miss anything, you're going to go straight to that website and pick up on all of it. I promise you, there's not going to be a better place for you to go. Thank you again just for coming on tonight. I really am speechless. This is one of the better interviews I've had this year, and I'm always grateful for an experience like this. Everyone, this has been another week of expecting better, doing better, and believing better. I'm your host. It's Just Nakia. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at It's Just Nakia. Most importantly, we have personal pages dedicated to the show at the Expect Effect Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. And don't forget to visit theexpecteffectpod.com. You can put in a form if you yourself would like to be a guest. We're in the process of reviewing submissions for season 4. You can also get plugged into our products and services and book event session with yours truly. Listen, this has been another round, your weekly dose of me time. We'll see you again next Wednesday.